You know what? I tell you what I believe. Shit happens.
In 1990 saw the release of Predator 2. It was a good 3 years until they released a sequel to the first film, which is a good turnaround time. It shows they are not trying desperately to cash in and gave the sequel some thought before they pursued with a follow-up. Originally they wanted Arnold Schwarzenegger to return, and there was some discussion with him. The idea of having the Predator in the city was always the main focus of the story, but after a short while Arnold had decided to jump ship and work on Terminator 2. British director Stephen Hopkins was given the role of director and had jumped to fame with his work on Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, which wasn't that successful with the critics and didn't make as much money as the previous film, but was credited as having a great visual style, and he was brought in to complete the movie in a very short space of time. Considering those issues, he did a very good job. The director's background was mainly in art direction, and he was a huge comic book fan, and was also a fantastic storyboard artist. So working on a Predator film should be an easy job for him. He does actually bring some sleek visual designs to the movie, and there are some great camera angles, and he chose some great talent to work with, ranging from the director of photography to the editor. After the success of the first film, Dark Horse Comics had begun to publish comics based on the Predator, and introduced many new ideas and tried to flesh out the character. And there was also one story I read which is set in New York City, where the brother of Arnold's character is investigating murders within the city and is dealing with local gangs. So I believe some of these ideas were incorporated by the original writers Jim and John Thomas into the sequel. They do add more characteristics to the Predator. Set in the future of 1997, 10 years after the events of the first movie, the Predator spots Danny Glover's character in action. He sees the warrior within him and I suppose wants to hunt him down the proper way. After he begins to take out the people around him and he starts to bait him, leaving items around to spook him out, which is a new thing for the Predator. We also discover more about the Predator's code of honour. He doesn't attack women who are pregnant or children. In the first film you realise he won't attack you if you are unarmed. The casting in Predator 2 is pretty good. The three that stand out is obviously Danny Glover, Gary Busey and the hilarious Bill Paxton. Danny Glover's character isn't that interesting. You don't really get to know much of his background. He's sort of thrown into the mix and he just comes across as a pissed off cop, which isn't very original. Gary Busey returns to acting after a 2-year stint out of work due to a life-threatening motorcycle accident. He returns on form and provides his usual class performance, but Bill Paxton steals the show. Already starred in Aliens, another sequel to another Fox franchise, plays the Lone Ranger. He transfers from another department to work in LA, and that's the only real background you're given. He basically provides the comic relief, as you can see here.
So I go in for my physical, right? And the doctor says, I need a semen, stool, and urine sample. I say, gee, doc, I'm in a big hurry. Can I just leave my underwear? Hey, nice flashlight. Mind if I borrow it?
Lost them.
Lost them where?
Burning in industry. I mean, like they fucking disappeared.
The slaughterhouse district?
Yeah, and in this heat, wolf. I mean, B.O. and barbecue. Hey, it's me. I look great. Yeah. Now, if you'll excuse me, Lieutenant, I got some serious police work to attend to. Come to Pop. Hey!
Hey, are your balls okay?
Fine. How are yours? Hey, do you mind? It's my sister. Hey, what? Oh, you're not my sister, are you?
Alan Silvestri returns to score the sequel and adds more original material to the original themes, like the Brazilian drums, added to the Predator theme tune. It's a very impressive soundtrack. Everyone has always highlighted the Predator main theme, but some of the most interesting cues are the ones when it builds up tension or helps in setting a scene. If you take away the music, the movie doesn't work in many areas. One of my favourite scenes is where Danny goes to retrieve the Predator's weapon, left at one of the crime scenes. The build-up is fantastic and really gets the impression something bad is going to happen, and obviously something does. If you have this film on DVD or Blu-ray, play it with DTS surround sound. It's a very impressive surround sound mix and provides for a great demo disc. The special effects are probably the most impressive aspect of the film, being one of the last movies to use film and optical processing for its effects before everything went digital. In 1990 we saw many of the last movies to use the old method of special effects, such as Total Recall, Dick Tracy and Die Hard 2. Stan Winston Studios really pushed their skills and created some great weapons for the Predator, such as the spear, net and a sort of spinning disc, and as a new version of the Predator itself. I still prefer the look of the original. The new one just has a different design to its skin colour and a couple of facial differences. They even threw in the alien's skull design as a nod to the Alien vs Predator comics at the time, and got rumours spiralling out of control, and fans thought an Alien vs Predator movie would happen. There was a lot of discussion during the late 90s of a film, but it wasn't until we finally got it in 2004, and unfortunately it turned out to be a huge letdown. One of the director's favourite scenes, and also one of my personal favourites as well, is when the Predator appears in front of the Jamaican boss King Willie. He walks across the water and has an effect on his cloaking device, and the camera pans down and you see the reflection of the Predator before he kills him. Very impressive and shows Stephen Hopkins' great visual eye. At the time of the film's release, it got heavily criticised for its use of foul language. It says the F word every few minutes. It's a similar problem that occurred with Robocop 2, which was way over the top with its swearing. I always found it quite funny because it sometimes just seems like a cheap attempt to be cool and hard-edged by swearing constantly. Siskel and Ebert weren't too impressed with Predator 2 and highlighted the issues with foul language.
One of his kind, stalked and eliminated an elite special forces crew in Central America. There were 2 survivors. Remarkable weaponry. That's right, Lieutenant. Otherworld life forms.
What Danny Glover has discovered there is that some kind of creature with superhuman strength seems to be on a killing spree in Los Angeles. And he's right, a big game hunter from outer space is on the loose in Predator 2. The original movie starred Arnold Schwarzenegger and the Predator in a one-on-one fight to the finish in the South American jungle, but Arnold isn't in this new movie, and the battle takes place in a different kind of jungle, Los Angeles, in the savage future world of 1997.
Whoever did this took out 4 men armed with machine guns by hand.
In any movie like this, there's always a federal official who seems to know everything and tries to warn the tough cop away from the case. This time, that role goes to Gary Busey.
Iwo Jima, Cambodia, Beirut, drawn by heat and conflict. He's on safari. Lions, the tigers, the bears. Oh my.
Trophies. That's the game, isn't it, Keys?
You're the lion. This is his jungle.
Once again this time, we learn little about the Predator except that he can be invisible, he sees by using infrared vision, and he'd rather kill than do anything else.
It's moving back against the wall. It's backing up. It's moving away from them.
You see them, Garber. Your boys have been made.
Sir, it's circling around behind them.
Get them out, Garber. They're walking into a trap. Get them out.
I don't know how much the original Predator cost to make, but Predator 2 is not a low-budget sequel. It's an expensive, high-tech movie with elaborate special effects, a lot of violence, and a surprising amount of really insulting foul language. As a high-tech thriller, it does its job, but it doesn't have much imagination. Here's a visitor from outer space, after all, and he has about the same taste and personality as Freddy Krueger or any other slasher villain. I wish there had been less violence in this movie and more of the vision of science fiction.
It's easy to compare the two films. The jungle was a much more interesting place in the original picture than this L.A. We've seen the L.A. Graffiti-sprayed streets before. It's not particularly exciting. Second, Schwarzenegger is more compelling in an action story than Danny Glover is. Danny Glover's a fine actor, but you can't beat Schwarzenegger going against a creature like this. It was just a pale carbon copy. All it does is kill.
But there's
no
another
rhyme or
thing,
reason.
Gene, that I mentioned before, and I'll come back to it again now. Danny Glover is very, very good in action pictures like Lethal Weapon. I think he's
because he
fabulous.
has a
in those roles.
human quality.
Here, he and the other actors are given dialogue that is designed only to explain and further the plot, and it's punctuated by the most vile language. I hardly ever mention bad language on the program because so many thrillers just use it routinely, but here, the ways that they find to insult women in particular reach a new low. I mean, who put this dialogue in and who approved it?
It's not a pleasant film.
At the time the film's release, there was a Mega Drive game and one on the Amiga. The Amiga game was branded unplayable by many people and had strange music which didn't suit the nature of the game. The Mega Drive one was a sort of isometric game where you run around saving civilians and trying to avoid the Predator's laser targeting, just like the film. I thought the game was really good when it came out and thought it was a little gory in places, which was new at the time. One interesting clip I found online, it appears to be an outtake from the film. It has all the Predators dancing at the end with Danny Glover in the spaceship set. Someone says it's from a Laserdisc, but I've never come across it. I don't think Predator 2 is a bad sequel because it's very watchable and I've seen it many times with my friends. It expands more on the Predator character and you get to see the spaceship and more Predators on screen. There is some funny humour to it and some average to well executed action scenes, especially in the intro sequence where they are battling out in the streets. Predator 2 was one of the first to be tested as an NC-17, which was a new rating introduced in 1990. Obviously the studio couldn't allow such a rating and made quite a lot of cuts to bring it down to an R rating. I feel the film was less gory than the first film and maybe they panicked and cut too much. The main problem is that it just lacks the interesting characters of the first film and sort of speeds its way along and gets rid of essential key characters very quickly. There isn't much time spent with them unlike the first movie and you don't have much attachment to them. It's a very mean-spirited film, it doesn't leave you feeling very positive and it's very downbeat. If you haven't seen it before, watch it with low expectations and you'll probably enjoy it for what it is. But for Predator fans, they have already seen it and judged it, and most probably found it to be a bit of a letdown. But hey, it's far better than those Alien vs Predator movies.